At 2:40 a.m., I kicked open the motel door. My fiancé was on top of him, screaming my name. Then he lunged at me. The phone buzzed twice on the nightstand before I even opened my eyes. It wasn't a normal time for anyone to be contacting me. 2 a.m. is when most messages mean one of two things: someone's dead, or someone's dirty secret is about to crawl out into the open. Half asleep, I grabbed it and saw a single notification, an unknown number with an address and 3 words underneath. She's here now. I sat up. My fiancée, Lily, had told me she was staying at her friend's place. A girl's night, she called it. That was her story, but the pit in my stomach told me different. For weeks, things had been off. Her phone flipped face down on the table. Excuses about late work meetings, sudden errands after dinner. Every time I tried to connect the dots, she laughed it off or turned it back on me, saying I was becoming paranoid. Still, the gnawing unease never left. That text wasn't something I could ignore. My first thought was prank. But then I opened the Maps app and typed in the address. It wasn't her friend's neighborhood, not even close. It was a stretch of highway on the edge of town, a rundown place with gas stations and neon-lit motels where truckers and couples who didn't want to be seen went to hide. I pulled on jeans, grabbed my keys, and drove without thinking too hard. The road was empty except for the occasional 18-wheeler barreling by. The longer I drove, the clearer it became. Whatever I was about to see would rip my life open, and there would be no stitching it back together. The motel came into view, a flickering sign buzzing in the dark: Starlene Inn, weekly rates. A handful of cars were parked in uneven rows, their windshields fogged. I checked the message again. The number gave me a specific room, 12B. My chest tightened as I pulled into a space 3 doors down. I sat there for a full minute, engine off, staring at the row of doors. The curtains in most rooms were shut tight, but one on the far end glowed faintly with a television's blue light. Room 12B was near the center. I scanned the parking lot, searching for her car, and there it was, parked crooked, like she'd been too distracted to line it up. The sight of it was worse than the message. It confirmed everything in one blow. I got out, slammed the door quietly, and walked toward 12B. The night air carried a faint chemical tang of detergent mixed with stale cigarettes. I passed one man smoking outside his door, who gave me a wary glance. My fists clenched, nails cutting into my palms. Every step closer, the buzzing in my head grew louder. At 2:40 a.m., I stopped at the door of 12B. My knuckles hovered above it. For a second, I wondered if I should wait, gather more proof, maybe call someone. But the thought vanished as quickly as it came. Proof wasn't what I needed. I needed the truth to hit me in the face. No sugarcoating, no room for excuses. I kicked the door open. The chain snapped off instantly, the sound echoing down the corridor. Inside, the room stank of sweat and cheap perfume. Lily was there, exactly where I'd feared she would be, on top of a man I'd never seen before. Her hair stuck to her face, her voice shrill as she screamed my name, not out of love, but out of sheer panic. Time slowed for a second. My vision tunneled on the scene. The guy underneath her didn't freeze the way she did. He lunged at me like a cornered animal, half-dressed, wild-eyed. The impact knocked me back a step, and we crashed into the dresser, sending a lamp crashing to the floor. He swung first, a wild punch that grazed my jaw. I retaliated with a shove that sent him stumbling into the bed frame. Lily scrambled off, clutching the sheet to her chest, babbling words I couldn't process. The man charged again, fists flying, but this time I ducked and drove him into the wall. The drywall cracked with a hollow thud. The fight was messy, clumsy, but full of rage. He clawed at my face. I slammed him onto the carpet. He tried to choke me. I smashed his arm against the edge of the nightstand until he howled. Somewhere in the chaos, Lily screamed at both of us to stop, her voice hoarse and terrified. Then, distant at first, I heard sirens. Somebody in the motel must have called it in. I staggered to my feet, breathing hard, knuckles throbbing, shirt ripped. The guy was curled on the floor, wheezing but glaring at me like he'd kill me if he could stand. Lily tried to crawl toward me, pleading with her eyes, saying I'd misunderstood, that it wasn't what it looked like. The words were useless, and we both knew it. The flashing lights grew closer, red and blue seeping through the thin curtains. I wasn't about to stand there and be handcuffed next to her lover. I backed toward the door, every muscle burning with adrenaline. On my way out, I spotted the motel desk clerk peeking out from his office. He looked me up and down, then glanced toward the chaos inside the room. Before I left, I muttered a single sentence and slid a folded bill into his hand. He nodded. A silent transaction, one that would matter later when the story needed to be told. I slipped into my car just as the patrol cars pulled in, their sirens cutting off. My heart hammered as I turned the ignition and pulled out, headlights slicing the night. Behind me, officers rushed toward the rooms. I drove until the motel disappeared in the rearview mirror, until the adrenaline began to fade and the weight of what I'd seen settled in. At home, I locked the door and sat in the dark, trying to catch my breath. My phone lit up over and over, her name filling the screen. Dozens of missed calls, text after text. She begged me to answer, swore it was a mistake, pleaded for me to meet her somewhere private to talk. I turned the screen face down on the table. The silence in my apartment was deafening. I didn't sleep. Instead, I thought about that anonymous message, the timing, the precision of the address. Whoever sent it wanted me to see. And if they knew enough to track her down to that room, they knew more. This wasn't just infidelity, it was a trail. One I was about to follow, no matter how ugly it got. By dawn, I wasn't the same man who'd left the apartment hours earlier. The foundation of my life had collapsed in a motel room, and beneath the rubble was something colder. Rage, yes, but also a sharp clarity. She hadn't just betrayed me, she'd underestimated me. And now I was going to unravel every secret she thought she could hide. The clock read 7:15 when I finally stood up, grabbed a notepad, and began writing down every detail I could remember. The car in the lot, the room number, the clerk's expression, the man's build, the way Lily's phone had buzzed on the nightstand before I left. A case file, piece by piece, taking shape. The night wasn't the end. It was only the opening move. Morning light didn't bring calm. It brought clarity that felt heavier than rage. The apartment smelled faintly of cold coffee, and my notepad with scrawled notes sat on the table like a dossier. Every detail of that night replayed. Lily's voice breaking when she saw me, the stranger's fists, the police sirens painting the curtains red and blue. None of it would fade. It etched deeper with each passing hour. The first step wasn't confrontation. I already had enough of that in the motel. What I needed now was understanding. Who was the man? How long had this gone on? Why had I received that anonymous message at exactly 2 a.m., the kind of timing no coincidence could explain? I opened Lily's laptop. She wasn't careful with passwords. Months together had made her comfortable enough to believe she never needed to hide them. That arrogance was my advantage. I scanned through browser history, emails, receipts. There it was, a pattern I had overlooked before. Late-night Uber trips, charges at restaurants across town on the nights she swore she was home with her friend. Small gaps that lined up too neatly with her excuses. The man had a name. His card appeared on one of the receipts, Carter. A high-end bar receipt listed his name alongside hers. At first glance it could have been coincidence, two patrons paying separately. But the timestamps matched, and the clerk's scribble on the paper marked them as a pair. I searched his name through her social media. He appeared in the background of photos from her office holiday party. A man in his early 30s, sharp suit, confident smirk. Too polished for a random fling. It meant this wasn't accidental. It was calculated. She had been carrying on with someone connected to her daily life. The next step was tracking movements. I logged into our shared phone account. Location history never lies. Every Thursday for the past 2 months, her phone pinged in the same section of town, always near that motel stretch or one of 2 restaurants. She wasn't clever about covering her tracks, probably assuming I trusted her too much to notice. By mid-afternoon, I had mapped a timeline of their meetings. 2 months of Thursday nights. At least 3 overnights at the motel. And several weekday lunches where she had claimed to be slammed with work. It wasn't a slip. It was a routine. Anger surged, but anger was useless unless it was sharpened. Instead of smashing her phone or storming into her office, I planned. She had thought secrecy was her shield, but I was already 2 steps ahead. The anonymous message still bothered me. Someone had wanted me to see the truth. It meant Lily and Carter weren't as discreet as they believed. Someone close enough to notice had grown tired of watching. The clerk at the motel had eyes on them, sure, but why would he risk sending me a text? It had to be someone who knew both of them. I considered Lily's friend circle. One of them might have snapped, unable to watch her betray me while pretending to support our engagement. Or it could have been someone from Carter's side. Maybe he wasn't as free as he looked. Maybe there was another person he had betrayed along the way. That evening, I left the apartment and drove back to the Starline Inn. The same buzzing neon sign glared at me. The clerk was still there, perched behind his desk with a magazine. His expression barely shifted when he saw me. Without a word, I slid another folded bill across. He pocketed it and leaned forward. He remembered her. He remembered the man. Not their names, but enough details to match what I already knew. They'd been there before, always cash, always room 12B or 15. Once a week, never more, but always consistent. The last time before last night had been the Thursday before. He hadn't sent the message, though. His shrug was genuine, and the way he avoided my eyes told me he wanted nothing more to do with it. I left unsatisfied, but not empty-handed. At least I confirmed their pattern, and the clerk had no reason to lie. His money was already pocketed. Back home, Lily's messages kept flooding in. Pleased to talk, promises to explain. She wanted a meeting, a private conversation, a chance to spin her story before it spread. I ignored every attempt. Silence was louder than any confrontation. Instead, I dug deeper. Carter's name led me through corporate directories. He wasn't just a coworker. He was her direct superior. A manager with authority over her projects. It explained her late nights, her sudden promotions, her reluctance to discuss office politics. She had built her career on proximity to him, all while using me as her steady fallback. The hypocrisy tasted bitter, but it also revealed leverage. If I exposed them, it wasn't just betrayal, it was workplace misconduct. He risked his job. She risked hers. That knowledge steadied me. The next few days, I watched her unravel from a distance. She showed up at my apartment twice. I didn't open the door. Through the peephole, I saw her pacing, knocking, her eyes rimmed red. She left notes slid under the door. I didn't read them. Each unanswered attempt made her more frantic. By Friday, the escalation came. A pounding at the door at midnight. This time it wasn't Lily, it was Carter. Two men stood behind him, broad-shouldered, the type who thought intimidation solved problems. My building's security camera caught the scene. Carter demanding to be let in, his men shifting like enforcers waiting for orders. I stayed silent, lights off, camera rolling. They pounded for 10 minutes before leaving, muttering threats loud enough for the microphone to catch. It was sloppy, reckless, and exactly the kind of ammunition I needed. I spent the rest of the night reviewing the footage. Carter's arrogance had given me more than enough to work with. This wasn't a simple affair anymore. It was a game of power, and he'd overplayed his hand. Saturday, I made copies of everything. Receipts, location history, camera footage of their threats, screenshots of Lily's texts. A digital folder grew thicker by the hour. I wasn't just documenting, I was building a case. Lily must have felt the walls closing in, because she tried another angle. Mutual friends reached out, claiming she was distraught, that I owed her a chance to explain. I declined every request. She wasn't seeking forgiveness. She was seeking control of the narrative. If I gave her that, she would twist it until I was painted as the unstable fiancé who snapped over nothing. By Sunday, I saw the first crack in Carter's confidence. His social media account went dark. His presence at Lily's side vanished from photos. Something in his world had shifted. Whether it was workplace pressure or rumors starting to spread, I couldn't tell yet. But it meant he was vulnerable. I decided to test it. An anonymous email, sent from a burner account, containing one screenshot from the security camera footage. Nothing else. No threats, no demands, just a taste of what I had. I tracked the email. Within an hour, Carter opened it 6 times. He didn't respond, but he didn't need to. His silence was confirmation enough. He was rattled. The next morning, Lily's office called my number by mistake. A clipped voicemail from HR left on the line, asking Carter to schedule a meeting regarding a concern. I saved it instantly. The spiral had begun. But the biggest twist came Tuesday night. Another anonymous message, same unknown number as before. This time it wasn't an address. It was a warning. Be careful. He's desperate now. The chill ran deeper than the first text. Whoever this ghost was, they weren't finished. They had eyes on Carter and Lily even when I wasn't watching. Someone else wanted him to burn just as much as I did. And desperation made men sloppy. I felt it in my bones. Carter wouldn't back down quietly. He was about to make his move. I slept with the lights off, the front door bolted, my phone set to record at the slightest sound. Every shadow in the apartment seemed sharper, every creak louder. I wasn't paranoid, I was prepared. Because when he came again, I'd be ready, and this time I wouldn't just collect evidence. I'd turn it back on him in ways he couldn't crawl out of. The affair wasn't just exposed. It was detonating, and I was holding the detonator. The warning text replayed in my head for days. Be careful. He's desperate now. It confirmed 2 things. 1, someone had eyes on Carter and Lily that I didn't. And 2, I wasn't fighting this alone. There was another hand moving the pieces, someone who hated them enough to feed me ammunition. I kept my life quiet, but I was never idle. Every shred of evidence went into duplicate drives stored in different places. Paper copies in a locked drawer. Video files encrypted online. I wasn't paranoid. I was building insurance. If Carter tried to push me again, I wanted everything ready to detonate without warning. The first strike wasn't mine, though. It came from his side. On Thursday morning, my phone buzzed with a call from a number I didn't recognize. A police officer asked me to come in for questioning about an altercation. My stomach tightened. Carter had made his move. At the station, they played a shaky video of me outside my apartment. Carter's voice rang in the background, claiming I had threatened him and his men. The clip was cropped, selective, a far cry from the full security footage. I didn't flinch. I told the officer I had complete video recordings with audio from my building's security system. Their expressions shifted the moment I mentioned it. Back home, I delivered the files within an hour. Full footage. Carter pounding on my door with 2 hired thugs, shouting threats, not me. I included timestamps, camera logs, everything neatly prepared. By evening, the officer called me back. The case was closed in my favor. Carter had attempted to file a false report, and now his credibility with law enforcement was compromised. The win was satisfying, but it was just the beginning. I decided it was time to bleed him in ways he couldn't hide from. That weekend, I visited Lily's parents. They had always looked at me as the steady one, the reliable man she was lucky to have. I walked into their living room with a folder. No drama, no accusations, just evidence laid out piece by piece. Receipts, location logs, security footage stills. Their faces shifted from confusion to horror as the puzzle came together. Her father clenched his jaw. Her mother covered her mouth, speechless. They didn't argue. They didn't defend her. They only asked me one thing. What did I plan to do? My answer was simple. I wasn't seeking reconciliation. I wanted distance, but I also wanted them to know who their daughter truly was. They promised they would deal with her. The next day, Lily's frantic messages changed tone. No longer pleading, they turned to fury. Her family had cut her off. She blamed me, accused me of betrayal, tried to twist the story so that she was the victim. I ignored her words. They weren't aimed at me. They were desperate attempts to convince herself. But humiliation worked best in layers. Carter was next. I drafted an anonymous package and sent it to his company's HR department. Inside, evidence of his relationship with Lily, timestamps proving they met during work hours, and notes connecting promotions she received to his direct involvement. I didn't include everything, just enough to open the door to investigation. Within a week, whispers spread through her office. Lily lost assignments. Carter stopped showing up to team meetings. He had power once, but authority crumbles fast when suspicion attaches to it. Still, I didn't stop there. Psychological pressure was as effective as evidence. I sent Carter another anonymous email, this time with a single sentence. You don't know what I have left. Attached was a blurred still frame of him at the motel, just recognizable enough to shake him. He didn't reply, but his behavior told the story. Mutual friends saw him drinking heavily at bars, his usual arrogance eroded. Lily began showing up at his apartment in daylight, desperate for scraps of reassurance. They weren't united by passion anymore. They were chained together by mutual destruction. The escalation came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was leaving a coffee shop when Lily appeared, blocking my path. Her face was pale, hair unkempt, eyes bloodshot. She demanded answers in a voice louder than the street noise around us. People stared as she flailed, her words tumbling out about ruined reputations, her parents turning on her, whispers at work. She tried to force the blame on me in front of strangers, painting herself as the wounded partner. I let her rant. The longer she spoke, the more onlookers pulled out phones, recording her meltdown. When she realized she had no control of the scene, she bolted, face burning with shame. By evening, videos of her shouting circulated online among acquaintances. Humiliation wasn't just private anymore, it was viral. Carter, desperate, tried another counterstrike. This time he cornered me in a parking lot. His fists clenched, veins bulging, he looked ready to break. Instead of engaging, I raised my phone, screen already recording, thumb hovering over send. I reminded him without words that every move he made was documented. He froze, eyes flicking between my steady hand and the camera lens. Rage couldn't overcome exposure. He backed away, muttering threats he knew he couldn't act on. But desperation breeds recklessness. 2 nights later, I found my car keyed, long scratches running across the side. A petty act, but one that revealed his unraveling. I filed a report, included footage of him lurking near the lot, and handed it all to the police. It didn't lead to immediate arrest, but it stacked another charge in his growing file. By now, Lily was unraveling faster than Carter. Stripped of family support, alienated at work, mocked online, she tried one last maneuver. She left a letter at my door, pages of tangled justifications. She admitted to the affair but painted it as a lapse, claimed Carter had manipulated her, that she had been confused. She begged for a private meeting, promising to end things if I would only give her another chance. I read the letter once. Then I filed it away with the rest of my documentation. Her words weren't confessions, they were strategies. She didn't want forgiveness. She wanted control restored. The next turning point came through Carter's collapse. His employer suspended him pending investigation. The HR meeting I had triggered grew into a formal case, and his position was stripped overnight. He went from commanding presence to disgraced liability. That's when his true desperation boiled over. Late Friday night, I heard footsteps outside my door. I watched through the peephole as he stood there, face twisted, gripping something metallic. A tire iron. He muttered under his breath, pacing like a man rehearsing violence. I dialed the police silently. Sirens cut through the night within minutes, and I filmed as officers tackled him in the hallway. He screamed, cursed, tried to spit accusations at me. None of it mattered. The weapon in his hand told the story. That arrest sealed his downfall. I handed over everything. Emails, footage, receipts. The detectives didn't need convincing. He was booked for attempted intimidation with a weapon, falsifying a report, harassment. His reputation in the city collapsed overnight. Lily's collapse was different. Without him, she had no anchor. Friends avoided her, colleagues whispered, her parents closed their doors. She was left floating in the wreckage of choices she had thought would make her powerful. Watching it unfold, I didn't feel triumph. What I felt was control returning. She had gambled with my trust, and I had turned her gamble into a weapon against her. Every lie she told had become a brick in the wall closing in on her. Every attempt to twist the story had only made the collapse louder. But I wasn't finished. I still didn't know who had sent the first message, or why. That anonymous figure remained a ghost in the background, the spark that had lit everything on fire. And part of me knew, their presence meant the story wasn't over. The real detonation was still coming. Carter's arrest didn't erase the tension. It magnified it. Once he was booked, I expected silence, maybe relief, but instead I felt the pressure shift. The anonymous warnings had been right. He had been desperate, reckless, and he had crossed the line. But if Carter was in custody, then who was still watching me from the shadows? The days following his arrest were quiet on the surface. Lily vanished. Her messages stopped. Her friends no longer spoke her name. At work, rumors swirled. She had been called into HR for questioning, her connection to Carter now undeniable. Projects pulled from her desk, colleagues avoiding eye contact. She tried to cling on, but it was obvious she was marked. Meanwhile, Carter's mugshot appeared in local news feeds. Articles didn't name Lily directly, but the mention of a workplace relationship was enough for whispers to spread. His suspension became termination. Legal charges piled higher when investigators connected his vandalism to other petty acts in the area. His fall was brutal and public. I thought the story might fade there. A fiancé's betrayal, a manager's collapse, justice delivered neatly. But real life doesn't close with clean edges. Loose threads demanded pulling, and I couldn't resist. The anonymous messages still gnawed at me. Someone had guided me to that motel at exactly 2 a.m. Someone had warned me when Carter grew dangerous. Without that hand, I might have discovered the betrayal too late or walked blindly into violence. I needed to know who it was and why. I bought another burner phone and texted the unknown number back. A simple message, "Who are you?" The reply came within minutes. "Not your enemy." That wasn't enough. I sent another, "Then why send me?" The answer cut deeper than expected. "Because he did the same to me." The pieces shifted. This wasn't about loyalty to me. This was about vengeance. Carter hadn't just betrayed me. He had left a trail of destruction behind him, and someone else he burned had decided to use me as the blade. The next evening, I got the full picture. Another message buzzed through, this time with a photo attached. A woman, mid-30s, standing beside Carter in a corporate event snapshot. I recognized her faintly from the holiday party photos Lily once showed me. She had been his subordinate too. She wrote, "My name is Dana. He promised me everything, used me, and left me to rot while he moved on to her. When I saw he was playing the same game with your fiancé, I made sure you knew. I wanted him exposed. I wanted her exposed too." Her confession hit with brutal clarity. Carter hadn't been selective. He had been greedy, climbing his career and feeding his ego on women who trusted him. Dana had been the casualty before Lily. Now she had turned her pain into fuel, ensuring I became the executioner. I didn't respond immediately. Part of me wanted to cut all ties, to avoid being used again. But the other part respected her honesty. She hadn't lied. She hadn't pretended it was altruism. She wanted revenge, and she had found me at the right time. With Carter jailed and Dana's motives revealed, I thought Lily might finally collapse quietly. Instead, she tried one last desperate act. On Sunday, I received a formal letter from her lawyer. A claim that I had harassed her, that I had ruined her career with false accusations, that I had spread lies to her family. She wanted damages, an apology, leverage to salvage something from the wreckage. I didn't panic. I compiled the entire archive. Location history, motel receipts, the clerk's testimony, security footage of Carter's threats, her own handwritten letter begging for forgiveness. I forwarded it all to my attorney, who responded on my behalf with one word stamped across the counterclaim: dismissed. By the time her lawyer reviewed the evidence, her case dissolved. She had walked into court carrying a story built on sand, and I had brought the storm that buried it. That was the last official move she made. When it failed, her silence was permanent. Friends later told me she had moved into a small rented room near the outskirts of town, living paycheck to paycheck on temp jobs, her resume poisoned by whispers and gaps she couldn't explain. She became invisible in the same city where she once flaunted her rise. Carter's fall was worse. His trial stretched for months, the charges sticking one by one: false police report, vandalism, attempted intimidation. His arrogance turned into rage in court, but rage only hardened the case against him. He was sentenced to 18 months. His career was gone before the cell door even shut. As for Dana, she disappeared back into her own life. We never met in person. She didn't want to. Her role was done, her vengeance complete. Occasionally, I'd see her name pop up in company memos online, attached to another firm she had joined. She had moved forward. Perhaps lighter, perhaps not. But she had gotten what she wanted: Carter's destruction. And me? My life didn't snap back into place. Engagement gone, trust shattered, nights restless. But I didn't collapse either. I rebuilt in small steps. Sold the apartment, moved across town, started running in the mornings just to clear the weight from my chest. I wasn't chasing new love. I was chasing silence, the kind that didn't hide lies in the corners. Looking back, the motel door at 2:40 a.m. wasn't just the moment I caught a fiancé's betrayal. It was the moment the entire facade cracked open, exposing not just Lily's lies but the web Carter had woven, the trail Dana had suffered, the arrogance of people who believed secrets could be hidden forever. Consequences didn't land all at once. They rippled outward. Lily lost her family, her career, her reputation. Carter lost his freedom, his power, his image. Dana reclaimed her agency by pulling the strings in the shadows. And I walked away carrying scars, yes, but also clarity. I learned that betrayal doesn't bury itself. It festers until someone drags it into daylight. Sometimes that person is the victim. Sometimes it's another victim, watching from the sidelines, waiting for their chance to strike. The night at the motel had started as a moment of rage, fists against fists, shouts in a room that stank of sweat and lies. But it ended months later with silence. Her silence, his silence, the kind that only comes when the truth has destroyed every place left to hide. And that's the story. If you're still here, that means you're one of us. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I drop new chaos every single day, and trust me, tomorrow's story, it's even worse than this one.